Hello everyone and welcome to our channel CareersTalk. I'm Sunan Sharma, an agile consultant based in Netherlands, and today we are going to discuss Scrum Master questions asked at TCS during the client round, one of the bank in UK, shared by one of our WhatsApp group member who recently gave the interview. And to help us with the answers, we have invited Anvita Prabhu. She have already have came on our channel, I think from last 3-4 session we have done. Anvita, right? And
Three, yes.
yes, and this is the fourth one. But friends, before we begin, if you're new here, please take time to explore our channel. You will find tons of answer to all possible Scrum Master interview questions. And if you truly want to succeed in your Scrum Master interview or excel in your career as a Scrum Master, this channel, Careers Talk, is all you need. So please subscribe to our channel. And if you find this session valuable, which I'm sure you will, don't forget to smash that like button. So without further delay, let's get started. Welcome, Anvita, and thank you for joining us today. Anvita.
Thank you, Sunand, for giving me this opportunity again and again, I would say. And it's always a great privilege and honor to be a part of this show. And since it gives a lot of recognition and a lot of exposure, right? Thank you once again. So maybe we can start with the session.
Wonderful, Anvita. Thank you. So the very first question is, let's say one of your developer is mm, much faster than other of your team members, and that person is taking most of the work, that causing a kind of imbalance and the frustration within the other team members. So how do you manage this kind of dynamics? It's happen in couple of teams. So how, as a scrum master, you can help other team members?
Yes, so this is one of the questions. I think most of the teams have this scenario wherein some of the developers are way far experienced than the other one, and with the experience per se, right, they can finish off the task easily as compared to the other people, and they also tend to take up some of the complex scenarios than the other ones, and as a result, this creates certain sort of I can say imbalance. It has happened in our team as well, wherein we have certain team members who are looking forward for some of the tasks, but then it is taken up by the lead developers, or I can say technical architects, and thereby it is creating some sort of imbalance, right? So first, my approach would be like, first of all, we need to understand from the developer itself who is like on a faster pace as compared to the other people, right? Onto is it voluntarily they are taking up the task, maybe on their interest, or are they overburdened, right? There can be two possibilities. So sometimes it so happen that even the management, or maybe from the tech leads, or maybe from the product owners, there would be some pressure to the lead developers to take up some of the complex scenarios and not give it to the other people, right? So that can also happen. So once you understand this, right, in case if you see that they are voluntarily taking up, then hold on to your empathy as a scrum master, right, and convey to the developer stating that what could be possible reasons why that there is some imbalance, and you need to upskill, other people also need to upskill accordingly, and there is some knowledge share which is required by this developer onto the other folks, right? That you need to convey holding on to the empathy, right, as a scrum master. And the second approach is if they are overburdened, right? In that case, I would say that you need to have a proper collaboration. Maybe in the retrospective, you need to highlight. The developer itself need to highlight, and based on that, you can take up some of the approach wherein they'll have a proper communication channel wherein all the work are being properly distributed and properly, assigned. Maybe you can create some subtasks or task within the particular user story, right? And you can probably distribute the work accordingly. And let's say some task, for example, testing is taken up by one person, or the PR reviews is done by the other one, or let's say some of the components of the user story is being distributed or shared across the team members. You can do this way and you can share the workload, right? That can be approached, and there should be a proper communication between the developers, right? In case if you are someone new to the team, then it so happened that they are always given less work as compared to the other. Maybe they might have more potential, but they're giving less work, right? So you need to understand in that perspective as well, so as to how you can distribute the work. And the one more approach is that I would say, hold on to your collaborations, and in the retrospective you need to highlight what exactly is going wrong, and why things are not evenly distributed. And I would also focus on cross, skill development, wherein you can set up some of the sessions for upgrading the other teammates within the squad or within the team, right? So that they can also learn, upskill themselves, and they can also come about some of the challenging tasks, or they can also take up some of the additional tasks which this particular developer can take, right? So I think these are some of the approaches which we can implement, and maybe you need to also take up feedback from the team regularly, on regular basis, and understand if that there is a balance which is maintained within the team. So in this way, I think we can see to it that everyone are given with uh, almost similar work.
Wonderful, Anvita. I think you have covered all
Yeah.
the points. Just a small input
Mm-hmm.
in a pointers. So, of course, we do a capacity planning. So, as
Yeah.
a Scrum Master, you can ensure that all your team members are getting the work, or according to their capacity.
Hmm.
They should not be, even if they are good, so that's not their fault. So you should not bombard
Yeah.
them,
Right.
and that will also give a clarity among all the team members, like if they have a given capacity and things like that. So of course, that's the first thing. Second thing is,
Hmm.
as you mentioned, I would say had a word with that individual as well. Sometimes even people don't know that what's happening and not happening around them. So tell them, appreciate them, that okay, we really appreciate your speed and the ownership, it's really impressive, but I have noticed that the team dynamics is starting to shift. Some members feel less engaged, or they hesitant to take the ownership. So how do
Hmm.
you feel about mentoring those people, or help them to
Yeah.
uplift the
Right.
whole team, things like that? So you should have that kind of friendly
Hmm.
conversation, with those individuals. And
Hmm.
of course,
Hmm.
as you mentioned, in the retrospective, so
Yeah.
in the retrospective, for example, we have this start, stop, and continue, or let's say we have a team radar. So these kind of retrospective going to help in these kind of scenarios, where you can
Hmm.
prompt the team members, individuals, like okay, what helping us, what is hindering our collaboration, are we all growing and learning equally? That's again an important question,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So then that kind of discussion will going to happen, right? And maybe we can also introduce something called WIP limit per person, that okay, how
Hmm.
many user stories or whatever the given PBIs a
Hmm.
person should work on in a given sprint, and things like that. So there are many alternatives, just to add, like whatever you just
Yeah.
mentioned. So I just thought to just add a little bit here. Okay, wonderful, Anvita. Thanks a lot for that elaborated
Thank
answer.
you.
Let's move on to our next question, which is also pretty interesting. Friends, you have to understand that all these questions are asked in client round, not your typical service-based questions. So these are little tricky, and you have to understand the perspective of the client, like why they are asking these questions. So in your normal interview, you might get all those predefined 10, 12 questions, but these are little different questions, more like a behavioral and a situational question. So pay attention. So the next question is, let's say your leadership decide to increase the team size beyond scrum guidelines. So let's say we have 15 plus team member. They are thinking to get more done as soon as possible.
Hmm.
So how do you manage these kinds of situation, while you have to be respectful for their intention, because their intention is right, the client intention is right, maybe the leadership intention is right, but then they don't understand a lot of other challenges which will come with this kind of setup. So what's your take over there, Anvita? Over to you.
Yeah, this is the exact scenario which has happened in our sport. Basically, I work for investment banks. It's like we have certain important capabilities which we were planning to deliver, and we were almost in a great pace, I would say, like wonderful. Like within the timeline, everything is getting over. Every sprint by sprint, we are able to deliver whatever is required. But in between, we had some of the regulatory aspects which came in, and it was the nth moment information which was given to the team stating that there should be a shift from here to there, because the regulatory aspects has to be completed within the stipulated timeline. So you need to understand from the leadership team so as to why they are saying this, right? That's most important, and we need to listen on to those aspects, why they are planning to increase the team size, or what could be the possible reasons. So now in this case, as I mentioned in this example, right, there are regulatory aspects that has to be completed. At the same time, we cannot risk onto the ongoing activity which is there, and in addition to that, we had some other aspects which came in at the nth moment. So we have to shift in our focus onto three aspects now instead of one, right? That is one of the reasons why our management leadership team decided, like, you can take internal resources from other squad who is at least having idea onto what exactly work item is, just an idea, right? So this is the intent behind why this leadership team has extended the number of people in the squad, I would say, as a team, right? So we know the intent now. Now, as a Scrum Master, we need to put forth what could be the possible challenges if we do so, right? So first thing is we need to explain that, as per Scrum guidelines, right? We cannot have more than 10 people. Why? Because we possibility is that there will be lack of communication between the team members, and there is lack of trust, I would say, as in when you pitch in new people, there will be some sort of bond which is created in the existing team, and they might not give some of the challenging aspect to the other team members, right? So as we mentioned in the previous answer, they might not trust that person, whoever is coming in from the possibly from the other squad or other team, right? So that's one thing. And uh, there could be dependency. Now, the people who are already working in the particular current work process, they might be, they might have to help the other people, whoever joins in new into the team, right? As and when the team size increases. So as a result, what happens is there will be some deviations from the sprint goal that we were planning to achieve, right? So the people who is helping out and who is taking help is also slow down. Their work is slowed down considerably because of the dependency. So all these things happen, and you can put forth your challenges to the management or the leadership team. And once it is understood, maybe you can provide some of the possible solutions from your end. Like, let's say you can split up the team into the logical, let's say, which has a common product goals, and let's say logical splitting. When I say logical splitting, it is basically you have a set of team members who are core team members who has an idea of this in both the teams, right? As a result, there is no much of dependency in both the teams. And at the same time, you can go about safe also, like scaled agile framework, wherein multiple codependent teams work together over the common product goal, right? So that is also one more approach. So I think these are the possible solutions which you can put forth. Uh, yeah, I think this would be a
Okay.
approach which I would
Yes.
implement.
Great, Anvita. Okay, let me just add quickly one or two things very quickly.
Yeah,
So,
sure,
of
sure,
course,
sure.
uh,
Mhm.
I would say start by engaging a conversation. I would say a respectful conversation with your leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
Um so you can tell something like, okay, and you have to understand that your conversation should be a solution oriented, not like you're opposing their
Yeah.
idea, right? So you can see like, okay, I can see you want to increase the output and delivery speed. That is a valuable goal. Can I share some of my insights from Scrum principles that may help us to achieve that in a more
Mm,
sustainable way? Then they will listen to you. So whenever
mm,
you are going to propose something, right, come up with a solution oriented approach, and then you can
mm,
put your numbers and things like that in a structured way. So for example, you can tell them, I'm sure like most of the people are aware about, but if you're not aware about, there is a formula for number of communication channel, which is
Mm.
n minus 1 divided by 2. So with 7 people, we have 21 channels. With 15 people, we have 105 channel. So if you divide like 15 minus 1 is 14 divided by 2, it will be 105. And
Mm.
Scrum guide suggests recommendation is like optimal team size should be 10 or less. And of course, as you mentioned, small teams
Mm.
communicate better and they are more productive, right? And you
Yeah.
can also include some past sprint data if available from other projects or from the same project. So for example, our cycle time is increased after the team grow, which is the case. And our daily scrum
Mm.
went from 15 minutes to 40 minutes. Again, of course, it will take time.
Mm.
You cannot finish within a 15 minutes and things like that. So come up
Yeah.
with all these things. And then you can also propose, as you mentioned, say for, let's say, a scrum of scrum, I would suggest in this case. So you can tell them that, okay, it's like a kind of compromise where you both
Mm.
supposed to win. So you can say that, okay, what if we split this large group into 2 3 small scrum teams that each own a subset of the backlog, but we coordinate using a scrum of scrum model,
Right.
right? So we can structure, let's say, each team of 7 to 9 and has its own scrum master. They have their own dailies, their planning, and scrum of scrum again, depending on the kind of project we are, maybe 2 3 times a week for a coordination, right? So we can
Mm.
tell them that this preserve the scrum structure and allow a real scaling, right? And of course we can, with the help of a product owner and leadership team, we can restructure a backlog, maybe a feature based or maybe a component based slicing, as you mentioned, right? And of
Yeah.
course we have to set the clear boundaries between the different teams. We must have a shared definition of done to align across the team. So individual teams can have their own definition of done, but then we should have a shared definition of done. And of course at the
Mm.
end of the day, we have to coach them. We have to coach them on a lot of aspect, on decision making, on ownership, on cross functionality, and of course there will be a dependency. So we have to minimize all those external dependencies, right?
Mm.
So yeah, these are the few things I just want to add on top of it, whatever you said,
Yeah.
Anvita. Okay, wonderful. Let's move on. So the next question is on the sprint review. So let's say during a sprint review, your stakeholder aggressively questions the team about a feature which is not completed, and then they are blaming the team for delay. So as a scrum master, how you are going to protect the team while you have to ensure that you should also give a constructive feedback. So yeah, it's a tricky
Mm.
situation, but difficult situation for a scrum master. And let's see, Anvita, how you are going to manage.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, as we know that sprint review occurs in every sprint, wherein we'll give wherein we will demonstrate onto what we have done, and based on that, we'll receive the feedback from the stakeholders, right? Now we need to first understand again onto the same aspect. I would come back. Like first we need to listen onto their perspective, right? Since it is a little aggressive mode of of their words. So maybe first we'll have to listen onto it, onto their concern, and maybe we need to note down them. And once it is done, you need to always appreciate them for raising these concerns, and maybe you can thank them for raising this concern and appreciate it for bringing it up. For example, one of our previous organization, it so happened that there was one functionality wherein we had to it was kind of a multi-user scenario. Okay, wherein
Mhm.
multiple users have to what if they use the application at once, right? Some kind of performance aspect. So when multiple user use the application, what it used to either hang, or it used to some or the other issues would pop up, which was even uncertain even for us, right? So we did a good amount of check in the previous sprint. I mean, yeah, previous sprint. But however, it was not up to the mark. So he was really frustrated. He is like, when I work on this, every time I see this issue coming in, what's the cause of it and stuffs like that. So something like this can happen, right? So you need to understand from their perspective. At the same time, you need to also convey why the delay is, right? As I mentioned in my previous example, there could be some of the aspects which might pitch in at the nth moment. Like as I mentioned, there were regulatory aspects which came in at the nth moment, and as a result, there was a complete shift. The team had to shift completely from the work they were doing onto the new aspects, so that piece of work would be completed within the given timeline. So now what we see here is that there can be a miscommunication, there can be a lack of information what we got from the stakeholder, or there can be nth moment changes onto the structure, or maybe into the could be the work items. So as a result, you can see some of the delays. These are some of the possible reasons you can say why delay occurred, right? And at the same time, you need to also support your team. It's not that you just support the stakeholders, right? So you need to celebrate and showcase what the team has achieved, right, as a part of delivery. So maybe you can showcase those aspects as well, and at the same time you can say that with the new functionalities coming in, we can possibly cover up the existing challenges what they have raised concern on, right? So that is the one. You need to again hold on to empathy and convey it in a better way, and you need to also give opportunity for product owners as well as the team to speak up onto, let's say there are some technical aspects which challenges which they have incurred, maybe during the production release, or maybe during the deployment onto the dev server or QA server. They might have seen some of the issues coming in which may not be as usual, right? So as a result, they might have seen some of the issues. So allow the team to speak up on tell their technical concerns if anything existed, right? Then you need to how do you overcome these things is that you need to have a proper clear communication going forward, possibly between the team as well as a stakeholder, and continuously have a review sessions with them, and so that you don't leave out any of the corners wherein they'll raise this point again and again, right? So I think these are some of the aspects which can help, um, possibly to give a possible good solution.
Yes, yes, wonderful. You
Yeah,
have mentioned all those points. So,
yeah,
just to add,
yeah.
whenever these kind of scenario happen, I
Hmm.
think we have to step in with a calm authority in that
Yeah,
particular
yeah.
moment. So interrupt respectfully to refrain that kind of conversation. So you can tell them that, yeah, thank you for raising your concerns. Let's
Yes,
take a moment to remember the purpose of sprint review. So it's an opportunity to inspect progress and adapt the product backlog collaboratively, right? And not to
yes,
assign a blame, right? So we should
yes.
remember the Scrum values of respect, openness, and courage.
Hmm.
So first of all, you have to tell them with a very calm and open mind, right? And then you have to redirect on the facts, right? So you can present what actually happened, as you also mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Without defensiveness. That's very important. So tell them that,
Hmm.
okay, this is the sprint goal. Was it met or not? Yes or no, right? Completed work. Show them what was your team has done, right? And then clearly state
Hmm.
why some of your features were not completed. Tell them issues related with the dependencies, the scope change, or some unplanned issues, right?
Yeah.
So tell them very clearly this feature was not completed due to X, whatever the reason, right? So we
Yes.
identify the risk early and we discuss it during the daily scrum calls. And here's what we are doing it to address it in the next sprint. So bring attention to the empirical process, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation, right? Please try to protect your team dignity. Avoid
Yes.
finger pointing. It's very important for you as a scrum master. Never
Yes.
let any individual developers take the blame. Speak on behalf of the team, right? So tell them that team worked towards the sprint goal and we communicated the risk as they emerge. And let's explore how we can better align on a scope or dependency or the priorities next time. And after the
Yeah.
review, you should also had a word with that specific stakeholder coach that stakeholder privately, right? Set up a follow-up conversation with that aggressive stakeholder. Tell them that, okay, I noticed some frustration in a sprint review and I understand the feature was important. Let's talk about it, how we can better align the expectation early in the sprint so the surprises are minimized, right? So open,
Mm.
have those kind of open channels, right? Focused on, again, solution oriented dialogue without public confrontation, because these people will fell we should not do that, these kind of conversation openly in front of
Yes.
everyone. So do that. And of course, from team perspective, as you also mentioned, facilitate a process improvement workshop or a session in your next retrospective. Bring that incident into the team's retrospective. Ask your team member, like, did we communicate this risk clearly, whether this risk is understood by the our client or whoever the stakeholders, right? Should we involve stakeholder more, maybe a mid sprint, maybe a sprint check-in, something like that, right? Was our definition of done is clear? So we should ask these kind of question to our team member, right? So let's, your team member should also understand, right? You have to empower your team to improve without internalizing them the blame, right? So I think these are the few
Yeah.
things also we can do in order to, in these kind of situation. And so we have covered everyone, we have covered our team, we have also covered our stakeholders, and we should be focused on a solution, not on a blames,
Yeah.
right? So that should be our approach. Okay, wonderful.
Right.
Anvita, let's move on to our next question, and that's on team velocity. So let's say your team velocity unexpectedly spiked over 2 sprints, but you suspect it due to inflated story points rather than some real productivity gains. So how do you approach these kind of scenarios where someone is manipulating the story points?
Okay, so this is the I see that the same thing coming in my in our company as well, maybe in our fleet level, I would say. So basically, story pointing, even though we coach to the team, even though we inform team what exactly story pointing is, kind of misleaded most of the time, right? So the team is quite not aware when you do a refinement sessions. They'll be like, yes, we know this, all the things like this can be 8 story point, this can be 5 story. There'll be some vague way of story pointing can be a situation wherein the actual effort is not mapped onto the exact story point, right? Of course, it's an estimation. It cannot be exact mapping, but however, it's not even nearby. It's always overestimated. So in that case, what happens is you need to check on the beyond the velocity chart. You need to also see where exactly what your actual effort computes to that particular story point. You need to have a reference metrics. So, in our organization, one of the team has already implemented this, wherein they have a reference metrics, which says that, like, let's say if you have a simple development, then let's say you're just creating an API or a simple development associated, then the story points would be so and so, and it may or might not be the exact way of doing it, but however, they have come up with one of the approach which kind of is showing better result for their team. So then if it is a moderate development, then what could be the possible aspects which might come up, and accordingly, as in the concept, what could be the condition based on that, what could be the story point for that. If you have major UI changes, then what it could be like, if you have some of the dependencies, then how it could be. So all these things they have articulated, they have seen some of the pattern in their particular user story, and accordingly they have articulated it, and accordingly they have given what could be the story points you can estimate in and around those areas, right? So that gives us a clear understanding, or maybe the team right now knows, okay, fine, story pointing is based on these aspects. So that approach I found it little helpful, even though we haven't implemented in our squad, but someone else have implemented, so I learned from them this is how it can be done. um, and first of all, you need to understand from the team's perspective also, so as to why this is being overestimated and stuff like that, right? So when there is a clear idea, formulate all these reference metrics so that next time when you estimate, the team knows, okay, fine, for this I have to articulate it this. We have communicated multiple times onto story pointing. It's based on effort, complexity, uncertainty, but still there will be some, since they are technical by nature, right? Any of the developers, they wouldn't understand the exact implication of these things onto the story pointing. So if you create something like this, it will give them a reference. Okay, fine. For API creation, for if it is a little complex, I have to do it this way. If it is moderate, I know what story points I can give approx, right? So you can do one such method, which I found it useful. And again, you need to have a collaborative channels also, so that you discuss across the team members and understand the complexities associated with the user story, and have a continuous refinement sessions so that at least they know what can be kept as a reference, and with respect to what we can have a relative estimations, right? That's one thing I would say. And have a continuous feedback sessions as well, and understand from the team whether these solution what you have given to the team, is it helping them or not, or do we need to do some changes. And also you can see in the velocity metrics as well, so that how it has been changed over period of time. And then you can also have a quality metrics also, so that you can see how bugs are being articulated, and how they are being resolved because of these story pointing, and how each one of them is being valued over here. Like, there'll be generally you see that testing team not finishing it. I mean, I should not say it as testing team. They're one team, but still they would come up and question, like, at the end we are getting the user story, we are not able to finish off. But the story pointing is generally done, developers do it based on their development standpoint, and scenario based would be done by the testers. So somewhat like, vague estimations will be done. As a result, you see that inflate or maybe overestimate or underestimate of the user stories, right? So I think with this is one of the approach which we have implemented. I think there could be multiple, but yeah, this is
Yes.
from me.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful, Anita, for sharing that
Yeah, yeah.
scenario, which is there in your project. So I would say
Mm-hmm.
start with observation and with the
Mm-hmm.
data, not with the
Yeah.
equation, right? So
Yeah.
before even jumping to the conclusion,
Mm-hmm.
gather evidence. So what you can do,
Yes.
maybe we can compare the last 4 to 6 sprints, like average story points versus actual work delivered, maybe the story point distribution, right? So our 3 point is now 5 or 8. Again, we have to also check the cycle time. Are the tasks really getting done faster, right? So these are the few things which we should have done. So gather all these evidence, right? Are the smaller stories being broken into an artificially large one, right? So all these
Yes.
sort of questions we should ask, right? Look for some patterns. For example, there is a similar work with an inflated point, right? So you can do the comparison.
Mm.
Or there is some sudden re-estimate trends which is happening suddenly, right?
Mm.
Maybe a spike without any corresponding business value. So look out for these small patterns, all these data points, right? That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Then, of course, we should raise this kind of topics in our retrospective, of course, without a blame, right? So facilitate a retrospective activity to inspect all these changes, right? Ask questions like, okay, what has changed in the way we estimate? Do we still feel our story points reflect the relative efforts? What does a five
Mm.
story point means to us now, right? And if some suspicious exit, surface it through a dialogue, not a equation, right? So tell them, help them that okay, velocity help us to plan and forecast, but only if it's rooted in a consistent estimate. So have we unintentionally shifted our point sizing? Ask this kind of open-ended question, right? And it might happen over the period of time that we should recalibrate our story points, right? So uh, we have that story point calculator. I mean, I have done one session in the past. We have for project. You can even download from a topic.
Mm.
Anyway, so the point is, uh, we should have some sort of guide. We should guide our team. There should be some reference, wall of reference, we call it, right? So we have to revisit
Yeah.
the baseline stories or the reference stories or whatever you call
Yes.
it, right? So what was previously considered a 1, 3, 5, and 8, right? Maybe use your planning poker or some affinity estimation to reset the agreement, right? So make these reference stories visible for ongoing use. Maybe your project is, like running from last 1 year, 2 years. So sometimes people forget that, okay, what we have discussed, and you never revisited those things, right? And of course, you have to tell your team that focus on value, not on points, right?
Yeah.
So you have to reinforce those story points as a forecasting tool, not a performance metric, right? So our goal as a team is to deliver value, not to chase a higher numbers, right? So
Yeah.
velocity is just a reflection of our capacity. It's not a scoreboard, right? So we can suggest that, okay, we have to track the delivered value per sprint, the customer impact. We should track the lead time and the cycle time. We should track the number of completed stories, not just point, right? So all those things we can do. And there is might be one of the possibility that there is a pressure from a leadership. If the team is inflating points, maybe they have some sort of, something which is coming from top delivery managers or something like that. So we should also look from that aspect. We should also
Mm.
coach our, all those stakeholders, right? So we have to tell them that, okay, velocity as a performance metric create an unintentional pressure. So let's focus on the various trends, the productivity and the quality rather than just chasing the velocity, right? So we should encourage the outcome based goal rather than
Mm.
output based metric. There's a difference. Outcome based rather than output based, right? So
Mm.
I think these are the few things which we have to, as a scrum master, we have to see from, from a larger perspective. Okay, so that's my perspective, Anvida.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next question. And the next question is also pretty interesting. So let's say your team work well and they are working too well. They are too nice. What do you mean by that? So they are avoiding any difficult conversation or some, critical feedback and things like that. So how do you push for a deeper self reflection and a real improvement in your team members?
Okay.
Anvita.
So it can so happen that it's a general human tendency, right? That we avoid all chaotic and maybe the deeper conversation just because there is no arguments or there is no conflict in opinion, right? Um, so this can happen. This definitely happens in team as well. So as a Scrum Master, I would say that first we need to have a good one-on-one communication with every team members. So uh, and understand what are the challenges they are facing within the team, and what could be the possible outcomes which we need to have. So build a psychological safety across the team, right? So first thing is you need to have a good bond with the team member, and at the same time each one of them also have to have a good understanding amongst each other. So that's another aspect. First point I would say is that build a proper good relation with the team, so that at least you know they put forth these critical points at least with you, saying that this is what is happening. Worst case, I'm telling, ideally it should be within the team, but however this can also be a particular aspect because we are brought up that way, right? So all of a sudden we can't change that. So second aspect is that have a good retrospective sessions, right? In the retrospective, make sure that I'll set up some of the retro games for like 15-20 minutes, so that people know each other on a personal front as well, not just okay, this person might be a technically sound and I know him only in that particular perspective. but I don't know what exactly he is, right? Unless and until we know each other on a personal front, we will not have that closeness to even put forth our opinion, right? As long as you're continuously working with that person. So you will avoid most of the time, like, okay, let's not discuss about it. Let's not go with arguments or any of the things because it's never heard. Some people will feel that, yes, our points are never heard. So let's not put forth. Let's keep it as is. Whatever they say, we'll follow it. That's the approach some people follow. So I have set up these retrospective games so that people speak up in the retrospective sessions, right? Sometimes even after you have the retrospective games, right, in the games they will speak, but after that they'll be silent. It's the only scrum master and the tech leads or one or two people will speak. So you can even call out names and you can ask like what happened, maybe you can say what went well, what didn't go well, what could be the action item. So you need to have a sort of interactive session so that they have that psychological safety for a better communication, right? And you need to also assess. I feel that uh, communication channels, building a proper collaborations between the team, that is also one more aspects. At the same time, you need to have that uh, 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 I would say that feedback collections, right?
Mhm,
You need to
mhm.
properly assess the team so as to how they are pressurized, or are they do they feel heard, or do they have some of the difference in the opinion, do they have that fear of conflict, all these things. You can assess these metrics and then understand on a personal front, and then maybe have a one-on-one session with the whosoever is concerned, or whosoever is maybe one or two people will dominate every time within the team, right? So you need to have that close collaboration within the team, at the same time holding on to your empathy always, right? You should not point out at them who is like who would put forth their opinion all the time. At the same time, you cannot even say that the person who is silent all the time, or maybe they don't open up for a deeper conversation. You can't blame on anyone as such, right? Maybe the person who always put forth their opinion will also lose their morale in case if you
True.
start saying that let them speak, or maybe they should be heard or something like that. So you need to have a healthy conversation between both the parties, and then you need to understand what exactly how things should be articulated within any of the sessions. It could be daily scrums, or it could be maybe retrospective, or maybe in the sprint reviews, etc., right? And give a fair chance to everyone, I would say. Like sometimes I also ensure that daily scrums are conducted by some person who is very silent in the team, right? So that they at least speak up. So I sit silently and I'll observe, okay, this is happening. And they do exactly how I do, how I facilitate the daily scrum. But at the same time, they will also get an opportunity. They will also be heard somewhere, right? So that's very important. And I also ensure that, in the retrospective sessions, people have this shout out section, which is very important. I feel appreciation is necessary for everyone across every age group, right? Everyone
Mm.
will like that. So that shout out section, I will always emphasize. Let's support each other. Let's support each other. So I think that is one of the aspect which will help people to speak up and have a deeper conversation.
Wonderful, Anita. Great. So just to add
Yeah.
my perspective,
Yeah.
so when a team is too nice,
Mm,
it's a indication that there is a lack of psychological safety for a
exactly.
constructive conflict.
Exactly.
Even if the surface level collaboration looks smooth, as you also mentioned,
Mm,
right? So, as a Scrum Master, our role is to gently disrupt the comfort zone and build a culture of trust based honesty. It
mm,
sounds difficult, but it's possible. So, first of all, you as a Scrum Master, right, we should not name the pattern without judging it. So, in a retrospective, or let's say in a one to one, we can say that, okay, I have noticed that we work really well together, which is great, wonderful. But sometimes it seems we hold back on giving a tough feedback or some challenging ideas, right? So Could be missing an opportunity to improve by avoiding all this discomfort. So we should invite the reflection, not
Hmm.
the defensiveness. So that's
Hmm.
the one thing. Other thing, as you mentioned about the retrospective, that's wonderful. We must do it. So we can choose some structure format. There are many that, as you mentioned, start, stop, continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then there is one more, which I also use, which is called elephant in the room. So
Okay.
you can ask your team members, okay, what's the one thing we never talk about, but we should. So by giving that kind of image, by externalizing the issue, the elephant, people feel safer to speak up, right? So of course, one of the way, there are many, as you also mentioned, but then again, this is specifically if you are having these kind of challenges and issues which you are facing, right?
Yeah.
And of course, uh, always try to go first. So you can say that, okay, I realize that I've not been pushing hard enough during our sprint planning, and we could be holding ourselves back from triggering some bolder goals or things like that, and that's on me. So when you show your vulnerability, it signals the honest feedback is safe and expected from all the team members, right? So show some of your own vulnerabilities first, and then the people will start trusting you for sure. Maybe you can also invite some sort of team norms, right? So maybe you can work, you have your working agreement, or some team charter sessions, or something like that. So we can mention that, okay, disagree respectfully, challenge ideas, not the people, right? So these are the key important keywords or phrases which we should have in our team charter. Feedback is a gift, offer and request it, right? So make these norms visible, and we as a team should revisit them regularly, right? Of course, we
Hmm.
should have some sort of feedback exercise. Sometimes people even don't
Yeah.
know like how to give that feedback, to be very honest, right? So you can use feedback in pairs, or something like, okay, appreciation plus challenge. So one thing I appreciate about your work is individual, right? And then one area I think you could grow is
Hmm.
something like that. So you are balancing out, you are giving appreciation, and of course you are challenging your other teammates, right? And start with volunteers, right? Do it as a fun activity to reduce some sort of
Yes.
pressure, right? And watch their behavior. Hmm? Like whether they are always agreeing in planning, or they are never raising some blockers in a daily scrum, or there is no hard question in the retrospective. It's an ideal thing for a scrum master, for a someone who is like fresher, oh, no one is doing anything, and it's pretty good for me as a scrum master, my team is so nice. It's not nice. They
Yeah.
will erupt, not now, maybe after 1 and 2 months, right? So you have to be proactive. Okay,
Yeah.
don't think
Yeah.
that's what, like, some of the experience people, they understand that, okay, something is happening, it's not just came out, right? So
Hmm.
please do that. Otherwise it's a very tricky position which I don't think like anyone wants to be. Anyway, wonderful, Anvita. Let's move on. We have so many questions and we are running out of time. No worry, maybe we can have one more session. Don't worry. So let's take the next question. Next question is on the product owner. So let's say your PO is uh, arriving unprepared for a backlog refinement, and it's causing a lot of delays and frustration with the team member. A lot of discussion happening. Only out of, let's say, 10, maybe you are just having one or two user stories which has been refined, and that too also with a lot of questions and things like that. So how do you address these kind of pattern as a scrum master, and what you can do to help your product owner and your team? Over to you.
Okay. So one of the squads which I handle, right? I just hope he doesn't see my videos. But this is the this is kind of a scenario which happens. So there could be some of the possibilities, um, right? If you go in their perspective, so as to first you understand why this is happening on a repetitive manner, then you can put forth your solution. So first is like there it could be that the product owner is assigned with multiple aspects, multiple teams he's being assigned to, and as a result, maybe these capabilities are not as important as the capabilities which is working in the other teams. So that can also be one of the possibilities wherein he's not focusing much over here. And so there can be multiple things. First thing is that if in case this is happening consistently, then you need to inform to the product owner that how the team is being facing, what challenges the team is facing because of this particular aspect, right? What I do is that I have scheduled a series of backlog refinement sessions. Maybe in a week, I have 2 sessions, which is set. So what I do is that prior to that particular day, let's say 2 days prior, I have the story readiness 15 minutes setup with the product owners, with the business analysts, so as to see that whether the user stories are in place or not, and whether the team has these things in place or not. That is a background work which I do for this particular squad, right? And the second thing is that we need to always address to the product owner as well, so as to what challenges the team is facing because of this. There can be that during the sprint cycle, during the sprint execution phase, there might be some of the new user stories. There is a scope change, and then they realize, oh, this user story has to be put up, and let's consider it, and they'll just straight away add it in the sprint board. So because of which you see some of the context switching which the developers has to do. At the same time, they have the capacity, but they don't have work to do, right? That can also be a scenario wherein they're waiting for the work, and in the mid of the sprint, the product owner says, okay, fine, this user story can be refined, let's do it. And they'll just get it into the sprint. And as a result, you see that lot of disruptions in your metrics and lot of disruptions in the team mindset also. There'll be totally chaotic situation, right? So you need to understand from the uh, product owner's perspective, so as to why the delay is. Once you know that, set up something like this, like a readiness session wherein you include these people, and understand the roadmap, what they're planning for. And based on the roadmap, you just say that these things, this is our velocity, and this is how this is the capacity what we have for the next sprint, and this much of work item can be considered for the upcoming sprint. So when can it be available, right? And accordingly, as per their let's say they'll say that after 2 days it's available, or after 3 days, set up a refinement session on that particular day, right? Of course, it should be before the sprint starts, right? So that you don't always encourage the scope creep during the sprint execution. And also during the sprint planning, have ensure that the roadmap is being articulated, is being uh, you know um, uh, showcase to the entire team as well, so that they are also in line, and they are also aware of what is going to come in the future, and what can be what could be the path of the work they are doing, right? It's not just you pull in some work and they start working. It shouldn't be that way. So I think these are the two aspects. And again, in the daily scrum, you make sure that all these points are being uh, showcase to the product owner onto what are the planned work items that are spending, and what could be the uh, capacity for the next sprint. And based on that, showcase them that this can be possible spillovers for the next sprint. So we need these many user stories in place. So when this can be when would this be available, and accordingly set up the backlog refinement sessions. Could be sometimes ad hoc also you can set up, but that's not a problem. But make sure that the user stories are in place, and also make sure that the user stories have the proper acceptance criteria, proper maybe the design documents. If you have any UI based applications, then design documents should be in place. Or you can also and you can also help the product owner in case he or she doesn't have much time with formulating the user story, right? Prioritization, yes, they can do it. But if you let's say they don't have much time over formulating the user stories, then as a scrum master you can provide a help to the product owner, and make sure that the user stories are being set up as per the DOR criteria that you already have been planned for. um, and yeah, these are some of the approaches which I have followed for this particular squad for one of the team.
Wonderful, Anvita. Wonderful,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to add very
Mm-hmm.
quickly, so we might have these kind of product owners for various reasons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I would say start with having a conversation with these people, like of course privately, and have
Yeah.
to be very empathic.
Yeah.
So understand the root cause, like why it's happening. So first of all, you have to be open up with them, tell them that okay,
Hmm.
I've noticed that some refinement sessions get stalled because the stories are not fully ready. So I understand that there is a lot on your plate. Is there something getting in the way of your preparation time? Right.
Hmm.
So this will open the door.
Yeah.
Understand the root
Yeah.
cause. Like, is there like too many meetings? If the PO itself is like unclear with the priorities,
Yes.
the lack of stakeholder input, what is it? Right? Show them that you really want to help, not blame.
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
should be the very first thing.
Yeah.
Do not blame them for anything, right? So that's the very first thing. Other thing is we have to clarify the expectation of ready.
Hmm.
This will happen when there is a misalignment or different interpretation of what is ready.
Hmm.
So have your precise definition, a clear definition of ready. So for example,
Yes.
we should have a clear acceptance criteria. The business value will be explained. The dependencies are identified, and it has to be estimable by the team. So have
Yes.
all these, whatever the checklist, make it small as possible. You don't have to be get it elaborated, otherwise it's a difficult. So and then tell them during the backlog refinement very gently, like looks like this one of the acceptance criteria is missing in this user story. Shall we park it for now and maybe we'll refine it once it meet the definition ready, something like that. So we as a team, scrum master, PO, and all your team members or your
Yeah.
developers, they should be very clear with what is the definition of ready. That's a very first thing.
Yeah.
Other thing which worked in one of the scenario for me, that I worked closely with the PO, and then we built a backlog refinement Kanban board together. So what is happening over there? So I'm blocking like 30 to 60 minutes of the time per week to prep with the product owner. So we introduce this backlog readiness Kanban. So we have two refined, and ready for planning. Like this, we have
Hmm.
just three columns over there. So this gives visibility, right? That okay, what we are working on, what where the POs need some support from me, right? So that's again something which can work for you if you are into similar sort
Hmm.
of position,
Hmm.
right? And of course, in retrospective, without naming the PO, right? You can ask all these kind of different patterns. So, okay, what been working well for us in a backlog refinements, and what's been slowing us down, right? Use some dot voting or some anonymous input or things like that, right? So, if the team surface the issue, they feel collaborative, not personal, right? Ask them, okay, what we can change to make the refinement more effective, right?
Yeah.
And let the PO hear the impact from the team, not just from you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because otherwise you will think that only you are complaining and not, I mean, it's
Hmm.
just your problem, not your team problem, right? So of
Yeah.
course invite your PO in your all your retrospective session, and let team will convey the message also, right? And you have to also make sure that the PO should understand that you are offering support, but
Hmm.
PO should drive the ownership. It's very important, right? Sometimes it happen. Help your PO, offer help. You can co-work on some story preparation. You can provide some sort of template for writing the user stories. All sort of thing you
Yeah.
can do with the PO, but make it very clear that the accountability is with PO, right?
Yeah.
Tell them that okay, I'm happy to support, but at the end the team depends on you for the preparation, for the commitment, right? With all the confidence, right?
Yeah.
Please do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes there is a lot of misalignment which happen. PO thought like okay, you are driving, and then PO
Hmm.
will take the back seat, so don't do that.
Yeah.
And in the last, which is the last resort, I would say, If despite all these things, if you think that it's not happening, and you have tried multiple things, please escalate to the leadership privately and with some facts, with some numbers,
Hmm.
that what, okay, what will happen, so far, what are the
Hmm.
measures which you have taken, what's the outcome of those measures, right? You should highlight the impact on the delivery, on the morale and the planning, right?
Hmm.
If you need some sort of support or training, please do that, but then this should be the last resort, not the first move. So yes,
Yeah,
that's
right.
something I want to add over here. Okay. Anvita, I think we are almost like 40-50 minutes. So I would suggest let's have a second session, because still we have, I think, 7-8 more questions left. So if you are okay, let's have one more session, and
Yeah.
let's end this session. So I would say thank you, Anvita, and thank you all of you. Thanks all our friends who are watching this session right now for joining us today. And we hope you found it helpful and informative. And if you enjoy the session, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Share this video to all of your other colleagues, Scrum Masters out there. Share on your LinkedIn, on your WhatsApp communities, right? So with this, we hope to see you in our next session. Until then, take care. This is Sunan Sharma signing off along with Anvita. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye. Thank you, Anvita, one more time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sinan.
Thank
Bye.
you.